Hi, guys. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of The Non-Typical Project. Today's episode is sponsored by Denny Dennis Sporting Goods. They're my local hometown archery shop that I've been going to for years. They've got top-of-the-line gear and even better people. So if you ever find yourself in the St. Louis, Missouri, or surrounding areas, be sure to swing on in, check them out, and tell them I sent you. Especially if you've got a blown-up compound or crossbow, their archery techs absolutely love that kind of work. So without any further ado, let's get straight into the episode.
Cool. Yeah.
All right, we're back. I think this is now episode 17 of the Non-Typical Project. And we've got an episode that's been it's been a little while in the making. We've been talking about it, but today we've got Sam Smith. Sam is a professional archer. He is the owner of Sam Bows Archery. Sam's a husband, and he's one hell of a bow hunter, as always, with kind of a common trend in our guests here. But Sam, welcome on the podcast, buddy. I appreciate you coming on, man.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me.
For sure. One of the things that we were just talking about before we hit record, and I wanna kind of go ahead and get it right off the gate. So you're the owner of Sam Bows Archery down in Georgia, I believe in Danielville.
Yeah, Danielsville, Iowa. Same place.
Yep. So
Just you're only like 35 minutes, 30 minutes north of the University of Georgia, so it's not far.
yeah, you're kind of in a hub there. Like you've got a lot of big hunting influencers out of the state. You're in an area where you're really close to all the ASA shoots. You're kind of in, a really big hot spot for archery. So, when did the shop come about, man? When did you decide, all right, screw it, I'm going to open up my own archery shop and go after this? Because it's not an easy task. I've gotten to see a lot of that stuff firsthand, and it's hard to really make a name for yourself, and you've done exactly that. So how'd that all kick off for you?
Yeah, so I just got into archery when I was younger. My dad always did it, and I got into shooting. I got into 3D tournament shooting, and then the guy who bought this shop when it was actually in Athens, it's been kind of I don't want to say like a historic shop, but it's been well known for a lot of years. And there's been a lot of people that went to the shop when it was originally Archery Traditions, which was strictly like he was a big traditional archery guy. If anybody watches this knows who George Riles is, George Riles worked at that shop. The owner at that time, Dan Quillian, who was a big traditional archery guy, he made his own longbows, all that stuff. He even knew Ted Nugent, all kinds of cool stuff like that. So it was a really big, it was like the hopping place back years ago from what I hear. It had a big indoor range. It was the place to be. And it just kind of passed down through different people over the years. And I met this guy through tournament archery, just shooting local shoots. And I knew him forever since I was young that he knew me from shooting. And I was a junior in high school. And he called my dad up one day and he's like, "Hey, your Sam want a job working in the shop." And I didn't even know at the time this guy had bought an archery shop. And I remember coming home from school one day and my dad was like, "Hey, Tyson called, you want to work in his archery shop?" And so he said, "Well, let's get in the truck and go see him." So sure enough, we drive on down here to Isla. I didn't even know where Isla was at the time. And, which it's a little small spot in town, but you blink, you'll go through it. We pull in and we talk, and he's like, "Man," he's like, "You've always shot and done your own thing." And at the time, I already worked on my own stuff. Jack Wallace had moved like 30 minutes from me over here in South Carolina. And I knew Jack. I'd go hang out with him and learned a lot from him over the years. And so he was like looking for someone that would be like a bow tech for him. And I probably worked for Tyson for roughly a year. And then I got into my senior year of high school, and that's when he approached my parents about buying it. And at the time, I was like, "Man, all I did was shoot and hunt and fish and shot a bow, worked on my bow. I had a press out in my building out behind the yard." And, dude, that's all I did was eat, breathe, shoot archery all the time. It didn't matter what the weather was like, I shot. And so I didn't really have like typical high school guy. I was like, I don't know what I want to do for school, college, or nothing. I was
Yeah.
like, I don't want to go to college and waste a bunch of time and money. And so, it was like an investment that was better than school to me at the moment. So at that time, I graduated high school in 2017, so I'm still very young. But we ended up going through it was a lot of work and it was a lot of hoops to jump through to get everything going because I was too young to even get something like that at the time. So my parents were the ones that technically got the business for me, but I've ran it ever since 2017. So we're coming up on 10 years now. And I
Wow.
actually just moved from that location. I didn't move. I can walk out my door and shoot the old shop building. It's 100 to 125 yards. But I moved into a bigger square foot building here. It's better location, easier to find. And I just moved here. This October will be 2 years. So it's been really good. I kind of was able to expand my bow brand and get more inventory. I got somewhere I can shoot inside. Like you kind of saw the range. I can shoot that way. I can even shoot this way. So it's been really good. So I've had the shop almost 10 years now, and it's been good to me. I mean, it always depends on the year with growth, with how the economy's doing and there's brands and, that fluctuates how much you can kind of progress your growth. But man, I've had a lot of really great people, met a lot of super awesome folks through the shop. Some of my closest friends I've met through archery or through the store, but it's been great. So I was kind of blessed that when I got into it, it was really already established. In a way, I did have to change the name, or I chose to choose the name. But I was able to already start out with some inventory. I had Matthews, Elite, and you kind of had at least a base ground to go off of because I'd already been in the shop for a year. So kind of already had a little bit of customer base. People knew me. People were still obviously learning who I was and from the work perspective. But it's been good. I've enjoyed it. It's allowed me to meet a lot of really great people, and it's kind of been very spoiled because I'm my own boss, so I can kind of pick and choose my hours. If I want to go hunting, I can go hunting, but there is that responsibility to you can't just up and peace out. I guess you can, but like I still run on my shop solely a lot by myself too. Like I got a couple guys that'll help me through the week. Um, and I've had a couple guys that's worked for me in the past, but finding a really great bow tech that you can trust, but other people can trust is hard. And like you coming from your local town shop, and I know other guys that go in that shop, you build that relationship with those people and your bow techs and just other people in there in general. But man, it's like a good mechanic or anything. When you find someone that you can trust with your equipment and they don't give you the runaround on stuff, they do it the best they can, man, that's your place. And finding someone that will treat something that's their own too. So, me, I treat everything as it is mine because that's my work going out the door. It's no different than anyone owning their own business, whether it's outdoors or not, it doesn't matter. Your
Yeah.
work is says a lot about you. So, um, I still try to take a lot of responsibility and, at least cover majority of the work that's done in here still myself because I'm very, very particular about stuff, which is good, but it is nice to get a break from it sometimes. But I've loved it, man. It's been very blessing, a big blessing, and very blessed to have it and to be able to get into it already kind of with my feet in motion. It wasn't just like I just got a building and said, "Oh, I'm gonna start an archery shop," which that's people's done that and that works and that's great. And if someone wants to do that, go for it. But I was very lucky to already at least have kind of some momentum going with a shop and with inventory and being around people and working with people. Because back in high school, man, I was shy. I I just hunted and shot. I didn't just go out and talk to random people. So that kind of helped get me a little bit out of my shell in a way, out of your comfort zone to learn to interact with people to a different level. Learn how to talk to people and read people. And then, you meet a lot of really great people through that. Just like with you shooting tournaments or going to any expo, dude, you meet so many different people that so many people have all the same passion.
Absolutely.
So much, same passion for a lot of things.
Yeah. Yeah, and dude, you said a couple things just then that like are so important. Number one, you talked about like meeting some of the best friends and stuff like that from the shop.
Hmm.
Almost all my best friends, I've met them in an archery shop or I've met them while I'm out hunting, and it's like it really doesn't matter you know, background you come from or anything like that. The second that you meet somebody in a bow shop getting ready for deer season or getting ready to shoot a tournament or whatever, you immediately have something in common right there. And it's so
Hmm.
easy to just have a conversation spark from there. And, those end up being some of your best friends. And that's how I've met mine.
Yeah,
The
well,
the
that's how I
other
met you, same way.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
met you
exactly.
through some of those same guys, Hunter and Jeff and so many others, Kirk, like, that's how I met Kirk, that's how I met Hunter through, all these guys, and that's because of archery. Coulda met them through
Yeah.
hunting, and you've met some through hunting, but, like, that's how I met all these guys was just archery, man.
Yeah, 100%. And that can't be understated, man. Because I feel like every time I go to an ASA shoot or go to an expo or something like that, or I'm at the shop, I meet somebody new, at each event, and you run into them every year. Like, we really only see each other at the ASA shoots. Like I've seen you 3 years in a row at Foley. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
we,
yeah.
we catch up there, and stay in touch, and that's kind of that's how a lot of my friends are made. But the other thing you mentioned was, having an archery technician that you can trust to bring in the shop or do anything like that that other people can trust. Dude,
Mm,
you hit the nail on the head with that, because at the end of the day, whatever's done to your bow at whatever shop you choose to go to, and this is kind of why, I tell people, like, find a good local shop that you like, and rather than trying to just kind of muscle your way through a big box or something like that, because at the end of the day, whoever set that up, if you don't have the means to set it up yourself at home or you don't know how, you're trusting whatever that work was in, like, what could be the biggest moment of your archery career, could be the biggest
yeah,
moment of your hunting career, in that do or die, you're at a shoot and you're really trying to, perform your best, or you've got the biggest buck of your life in front of you. How everything was set up and how you were sent out of that shop, that's how that bow is going to perform, assuming you do your job. So that's
exactly.
that's key. And having people that'll be honest with you, like, I love being at my local shop and talking to all those guys, and, like, yeah, I've been shooting archery for a long time. I used to be a bow tech. I did all that stuff. I know how to work on my own stuff. But whenever I start thinking about changing something or maybe some new arrows or trying something else out, I'm in the shop talking to those guys there
Mhm.
about, like, "Hey, what's your experience with this? What have you guys noticed about that? Good idea, bad idea," and I let everybody else's opinions kind of flow into it. That way you're seeing it from all sides, because if you
Yeah,
if you go
absolutely.
somewhere that you can't trust, they'll be like, "Oh, that's a great idea," and they're gonna push that sale. But
Yeah, to
if you
sell
got an
it, yeah.
honest shop to go to and they're like, "Hey, this is, I would recommend it," or if they tell you I wouldn't recommend it, that's a shop you can trust. And so that's
Yeah.
that's huge that you mentioned that.
Because you can man, there's so many products out there. It's almost like because everyone has a review about a said product, whether it doesn't matter, broadheads, arrows, and so many places are I wouldn't say everywhere, but, like, there's certain places are just there to sell stuff or there's guys just working behind the counter. They haven't had any experience with the product, and they
Yeah.
may go out and then some people, like, I think sometimes broadheads get the worst rap because the guy gets a broadhead, goes out in the woods, and he makes a bad shot on an animal, and he says, "That broadhead was terrible. It didn't open," or "This was terrible," because, like, he made a bad shot, and he don't wanna admit that, so he just says, "Oh, the broadhead is bad," or "The arrow's bad." Someone who will give you honest, 100% feedback, and that's why, like, everything that I try to sell in my shop is something that's reputable and that I can say, "Look, this is good. This is worth your money, because man, like, there's so much stuff that almost kinda competes with each other, especially in arrows and broadheads. Sights too, but, like, man, there's so many arrows that all kinda, like, you have the same diameters. You got different brands, but you got same diameters, similar grains per inch. Um, at the end of the day, almost all the arrows are gonna kill an animal as long as you do your job. You hit the arrow where the animal where you're supposed to. You've done your job, practice, got your bow shooting right. Pretty much it. Almost every arrow that you could buy, you can kill a deer with ethically. But when someone comes in that is focusing towards certain size animals or weights for speeds, like what can I carry energy wise, FOC if they're into that type of thing. Someone who knows product enough to be like, all right, hey, this is good, or what you're shooting and what you're thinking about buying is you're not going to see a difference. And that goes a long way because finding a shop or just people in general that will just, be straight honest with you, that says a lot. That's the same way with like any product in the outdoor industry. It doesn't even have to be archery related. It could be stands, saddles, sticks. There's so many
100%.
pieces to hunting, and I think the generation we live in now too. I remember when I first early on in the shop, people would come in and like, man, I've always just shot if I could hit a pie plate at 20, 30, 40 yards, I was good, man. Maybe we so far past the pie plate stage. Okay. We can shoot groups like this at 100 now or tighter.
Yeah.
And, people's like, well, so and so said it would be fine. I'm just a bow hunter. Like, yeah, you might be just a bow hunter, but just a bow hunter, that's the guys that come into your shop and repeat customers and spend money with you. But that's the guys that might be paying $15,000 going to elk hunt or a moose hunt or going to Iowa, like drew a Iowa tag or Kansas, whatever the case may be. And he's got a lot of money tied up in this animal. And if you're just kind of like, oh, you're looking at stuff, oh, that'll be good, it's close enough. Man, you want to give that guy like the best effort, maximum effort that he can to succeed at his hunt because that could change everything about your relationship with that customer, and how
Yeah.
he moves forward with your experience in the shop or experience as a person, how you treat them to other people. He may go to Kansas or he may even shoot the biggest deer of his life here in Georgia, and it may be only a 110-inch deer, and that's fine. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? First buck ever. And he's like, man, it's just the coolest thing. And that's what hooks and keeps that next generation of bow hunters and archers and just people in in this industry, but in the shop too. And like you said, man, a good bow tech is important, but just a good shop. Cause then you meet like-minded, good people in that, shop as well. So, and then you build relationships just like back again, what we were saying, like all the people you've met. Man, like, I've been in some incredible places hunting with Jeff, and if I had never met Jeff, I'd have never experienced those things. So, like you said, it's just you meet a lot of good people, and it's important to find those good shops too.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree, man. And first off, yeah, Jeff's a gem of a human being. For those of you guys that have met him, or if you haven't gotten to, and you
Yep.
do sometime at an ASA, but you know, with that side of things, and I love that you brought that up, like the whole experience. It might be their first deer.
Mhm.
Man, and you can see it in different parts of the country. Everybody talks about pressure, pressure, pressure. And yeah, pressure is a real thing in certain parts of the country or whatever. But if you look at overall tag purchases over the last, 10, 15 years, it's going down. And so, like, when you get, those new archers, those new bow hunters that have never done it before coming in a shop, that experience they have with the first bow tech they talk to, where they don't know nothing, and they're going in there and they're going to buy their first bow, or they want to go bow hunting for the first time, how they're set up, how they're guided, how, they're told to try to go through that process and learn everything for the first time. That might be the difference between them being a lifelong bow hunter and
Mhm.
somebody else supporting that way of life versus them never doing it again. And
Absolutely. 100%.
it's so important that they've got that good experience, and that, those good local shops stick around that can guide people the right way. And, I wanna get your opinion on this because I have my own theory, and I'm totally open to you tearing me apart on this. But, uh, the way that I've always looked at it, and the way that I'm gonna, the way that I tend to push people when they're looking to get into archery or bow hunting, or maybe somebody's listening that wants to try to upgrade or do something different. Uh, from my experience as a bow tech, and, I don't know how often you run into this, so let me know. But, I'd have people come in that were like, "Hey, my budget is this, and I wanna get into bow hunting, and I wanna do, X, Y, and Z, and I wanna hunt," let's say, whitetail, for example. Man, if they told me that their budget is $1,000, $1,500, whatever, and they wanna get into it, I've seen it the other way, and I can't wrap my head around it. Maybe you've got a different explanation to it, but I would rather that person buy a $500-$600 bow, and let's go get you the best rest we can get you,
Mhm.
the best arrows we can get you, the best broadheads. A good release is non-negotiable for me. We're not going to cheap out on a release, and we're going to get you some good stabilizers. Now, that might fluctuate a little bit. I've also, I'm also partial to the idea that you don't need the top of the line arrow when you're starting off, because you're not going to tell the difference anyways, when you're first starting in archery. But um I don't know, I've always had that idea that, I'd rather see you leave with a $500-$600 bow with a
Mhm.
250 $300, rest and a $200 release and all that stuff rather than leave with a flagship bow and you got a whisker biscuit on there and
Yeah.
you've got, the cheapest sight off the shelf. And I've seen that, I've seen those guys leave the
Yep.
shop like that. And to me, I always just saw that as, well, listen, that bow is going to run its course, or you're going to want a new bow sometime or whatever. So I'd rather you have top of the line equipment that's transferable to your next
Right.
bow. Or if you
Yep.
start off with a $500 bow and you upgrade, then you already have all the accessories that can match it and keep
Yeah.
up with it. But if you're buying, I tend to, I used to push people away from a flagship bow if it's their first bow, just because, you know, let's get to the point where we can outshoot the bow that we're on
Yeah.
and then upgrade
Well,
into it to make it easier.
and if we're being honest, man, like there's so many really good bows that are package deal bows that you don't have to spend over $1,000 bare bow price. And I
Agreed.
kind of agree with what you're saying. You know, if someone has a budget, obviously try to stay and but you get the best that you can get for that budget. And I love to try and help people get the best bang for their buck, so to speak.
Yeah.
I think 100% your arrow rest, your arrows, it's like it's no different than the scope and the bullets you put on a rifle.
Yeah.
You're not gonna go on some big moose hunt, elk hunt, or even a big deer hunt, or you just wanna kill a deer. You can do it with anything, but like if you're gonna get into it and you wanna have success, your arrows are very important, your arrow rests are important, and there's so many bows now, the technology, there's so look at all the flagship model bows, the tuning they have, but look at some of, like, the Bear package bows, some of the Elites and the Hoyts and certain brands, man, they've got a package deal bow that you get that offers some tunability, and it offers, like, you're saying you could put a pick mount side or a integrated rest, like, you can put good stuff on there, and you don't have to spend $3,000-$4,000 doing it,
Yep.
and so I agree, man, like, don't just buy a flagship model bow so you can say, "Well, I've got a brand new Matthews Arc or a Hoyt Carbon 10 RX or,
Yeah.
the Bowtech," whatever it is, like, yeah, it's a great bow, but your accessories, if you just throw in really cheap pin sight on there because durability is a big thing. If you're buying really cheap arrows and Whisker Biscuits, they've killed deer. They always have killed deer. People love them, people hate them. I'm not the biggest fan of them. They will get you if you're somewhere and you have one, it'll get you out of a bind. If you're in the, heat of the moment, out of state, and you just happen to have one, it'll get you
Yeah.
out of a bad situation. But, everything has its limits and, Whisker Bits same way, and if you take a basic entry level sight, it's not gonna take much to bump it off, to move it, to break it. You're talking about all this investment riding on cheap arrows or a cheap pin sight to kill an animal. Now, have people done it? Yes, they can. But in terms of like someone seeing success, like you're saying, I think 100% buy a good bear package bow, anything that's in that $500-$600 range that you could put a good rest on, good sight
Yep.
on, something. So you're at least maximizing that, what you can spend or your capability with that purchase. And man, there's people who kill tons of big deer with not flagship bows.
For sure.
Lots of
a hundred
people. You
percent.
don't have
Yeah.
to the flagship model bow doesn't kill the deer. You know what I mean? You being in tune with your stuff, everything set up properly, having good equipment, you yourself is what's killing an animal. It's the tool to use it. So if you've got good tools, it's no different than any other piece you use. Because I think, in my opinion, what you were saying about someone's experience in a shop, man, like there's so many key things and tools that go into bow hunting or just hunting in general. Like you got archery related products, you got your releases, you got clothing, you've got everything, binoculars, you got stands, the equipment you use to get yourself in the situation to pursue an animal or take an animal, man, that like and like again, it's that experience. So if someone comes in your shop, like you're saying, listen, man, like if this is your budget, let's get you a bow that is going to shoot good. We can tune it out. It's going to be great for you. We'll put good products on there. And then in 2-3 years or after the season, because people will do that. They'll say, man, I really love the bow, but I got great stuff, but I want to upgrade. And then they just transfer all their product that they bought that's good to the new bow because
Yep.
you don't have to have a $1,000 Garmin sight to kill deer. And, like you don't have to buy the most expensive stuff, but there's so much product out now that's really solid, and you ain't got to spend crazy amount of money, and you can transfer it from bow to bow to bow. You know, there are certain products that is maybe designed to fit a said model a certain way or what they say is better, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it won't work or you can't kill deer with it. So yeah, I agree with that. And you know, the biggest thing is those shops that are honest with you about that says a lot because they're trying to not necessarily upsell you. Most people are like, man, yeah, we'll sell you this $2,000 bow or $1,500 bow or whatever because they're all expensive now.
Yeah.
Because they see that initial sale and they're like, well, I don't. If he just wants to put cheap accessories on it, that's on him. Like, no, man. Like, try to maximize that experience and maximize what he's spending. You know, I mean that says so much about somebody that's willing to go the little extra mile and put him in the right product so that way when he takes that first animal ever with a bow, his experience that hooks him, man. You know, is what the first deer you ever shot with a bow, probably that adrenaline, dude. It's like the first animal you ever take. It hooks you, and that's why these people do it. That's why me and you do it.
Yeah.
And you know, like that says a lot because then you gain a lifelong customer and he is going to bring people that he meets into archery into your store and you can just continue that same passion and that's all to me that's where a shop can set itself aside from people or even just people in general is when someone who is in business for themselves from a shop perspective is passionate about it to say like I would rather not sell you something super expensive or make xyz amount of money. I would rather see you be successful and enjoy the sport and keep going over maximum amount of money I make on it because that's like big box stores. You know, y'all have a lot of shields and stuff out that way, and I've never been to a Shields before. They probably got good Bowtechs, they sell top line products, but like most big box stores, they don't have a really good Bowtech in there. He's just gonna sell you
Yep.
whatever's on the shop on the shelf. It doesn't mean anything to him because it's not his store. So you take a shop that's self owned by somebody, got good Bowtechs in there that take pride in it and passionate about it when they would rather sell you good product or see your experience and your success from you hunting, that's like so much more valuable than any amount of money because money comes and goes, man. I'll tell you a quick little story on a guy. This guy's been coming into my shop for a couple years now. Super great guy. He actually went on a moose hunt a couple years ago, and it's the first time I met him. He had like a Matthews Trix. We got him new arrows, got him set up, went on his moose hunt, and he's just become a repeat customer. Dude, he's got a 9-year-old son. And I tell people this story in here because it's so awesome. And he got it on video and everything. But like people can kill 200-inch deer, do all this stuff, and that's cool. Hats off to them. But like this is probably one of the coolest things I've seen in my shop. This guy, he went to Illinois hunting, and his son's only 9. So he isn't shooting very far, but he's pulling decent poundage. I think he's pulling like mid-30s, something I can't remember
Yeah.
exactly, but dude, he's shooting a Bear Gamekeeper Junior, which is a little bow, right? Okay.
Oh yeah.
Dude, he comes in the shop and we get him some like gold tip warriors and we're trying to tune this thing. And I'm like, man, he's like, you think you can shoot a deer with it? I'm like, man, it's a little bit on the edge, but I think if you can keep it inside 15 yards and he can shoot accurately, say a spot this big, man, if he can shoot consistently and you know keep his nerves under control, I think he could do it. Because I wasn't much older than that when I killed my first deer with a bow.
Yeah.
So anyway, he comes in and we're setting the arrows. I'm taking some Magnus buzz cut fixed broadheads and like I'm telling you, I've never tried to tune those bows a whole lot and trying to get a fixed blade to shoot out of those little bows can be kind of tricky.
Yeah,
But we
I
got it.
can.
We got those broadheads to hit with his field tips at 15 yards and in. We were shooting in here and dude, he wouldn't miss a dot about that big. So as long as he can stay in that, he gonna hit the lungs. He'll put a kill shot on him. Dude, I'm telling you, this is the coolest thing. I wish I had the video to send to you. Comes in from his hunt. He said, "Man," he's like, "I didn't kill nothing, but let me show you what this my son did." They're in Illinois, sitting on this alfalfa field in one of those big like redneck blinds, and there's a pretty good sized doe. She's bigger than our Georgia does here. She's right outside the blind, like 9 yards, man. He's like, "Dad, can I shoot her?" And he's like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." He films it. His kid draws back. Doe don't even know they're anywhere in the world. Dude, he smashed her, sunk it up to the fletchings in the lungs. She didn't even run out of the field. and the kid's
Oh,
so hyped,
man.
dude, he is hyped, he's like, "Let's go." The adrenaline, it's like the most coolest video I've ever seen, and man, let me tell you what, like, that set that kid for the rest of his life.
Yep.
And that all started with the experience his dad had with me at the shop, and that ain't putting me on a pedestal or putting me above anybody, but it proves the point of that relationship and that experience you meet with someone, you never know where it's gonna go to. Like, it went from him to his son, and then, I'm not super old, so maybe by the time his son is older, if, his kids maybe, like, I'll still be around doing it. It's like, that's where that all leads to, and that's, you know, that's that experience, and, whether the kid I'm sure he will further his hunting career and get into it, but even if he didn't, just that experience of him in the shop as a 9-year-old shooting and stuff, he'll never forget that.
Yeah.
I still remember the little hometown shop I grew up in. I remember being 9, 10 years old going to that shop. Like, man, that place wasn't as big as even this in here. It's just a little bitty room, but I still remember going to that shop with my dad. And I still, when I go that way, I'll pass by and see him and visit with him for a little bit. Or he'll call me needing parts or something. I'll take him to him. But like that all started from a shop that cared, or that, you know, was more interested in seeing your success than making X amount of dollars off of you.
Yeah.
So I think
Dude,
that's priceless.
you that story you just shared, I mean, that reminds me of when I was a kid. I mean, like, to a T too, because I took my first deer with a bow when I was 8, and it was with a little bear apprentice. It was about
Mhm.
35 pound draw, and I was using Magnus
Yep.
broadheads. And dude, it was just a doe came out and, sub 10 yards. I was in a little ladder stand right next to my dad in a lock on some public, and I'm never gonna forget that.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
to anybody that's not a bow hunter that hears what you just said, they think it's dramatic, but it's not. Anybody that's a bow
Mhm.
hunter knows that, like, that one interaction in a shop that then gets somebody started, that changes somebody's life, like, completely. You know what I mean? Where
Oh,
you could be
100%.
never really getting into it, or your dad did it and you didn't really care, versus, you're a kid and you went into a shop and you were
Mhm.
smashing the dot every single time you shot at it, and everybody's high-fiving you and you're all amped up, and you go out and that first experience with it being a big success, I mean, that
Yeah.
tees you up for a lifetime of, what's in my opinion, the best way I could spend my life is out there, chasing whitetail and hunting, and,
Mhm.
now I'm gonna, be travel hunting and stuff like that. It's like it changed the course of my life. So it's it makes so much sense, once you're older, and, that kid, he's got no idea, at that age what
Yeah,
that means,
none, man.
10 years from now. You can't,
Yeah.
but
Well, and it's
we
like,
all know it.
that goes to having that relationship with a good shot, because, like, obviously, you don't wanna send someone out there who isn't capable of shooting accurately enough to because everyone wants to kill an animal ethically. We don't wanna go out and
Yeah,
wound deer. We don't want people leaving wounded deer. So, like, I'm not gonna send a 9-year-old out there that the bow's not shooting right, or, "Oh, that's good enough," and, like, we wanna make it as efficient as we can, and then also, like, if he wasn't quite pulling enough poundage or maybe not shooting great enough, you gotta be able to step in and say, "Alright, like, maybe try and just work with him a little bit." It's not saying he's not good enough, but, like, just spend some time with him, and when you feel like, as an adult or a dad or a grown up or whatever the case may be, someone, whether you're getting them into archer or they're your son, kid, daughter, whatever the case may be, that you are pointing them in the right direction too, that they get a good start. Because, man, that experience could go 2 different ways for him.
yep,
He really, like, everything worked out great. He practiced, he spent his time, we made sure his stuff was right, double checked everything before he went on his trip, and he had the most successful, awesome experience he could. Where if he just went somewhere, been whatever, man, he could have hit that deer bad. Or, I mean, I would rather someone miss an animal than hit one bad
yeah,
all the way.
100%, 100%.
So, but if you're just like, oh yeah, he's good enough, you don't put a lot of effort into it. Cause, like, I didn't make really no money off of that sale, just making some smalls. You sold a little bit of airs and broadheads, but that didn't matter to me. Cause at one point in time, that was me and my dad at a place. Just like
Yeah,
anybody else, like that, you was like, man, you've seen your dad kill deer. He comes home with deer. And it's like, in your mind, especially when the kids eat up with it, that's what you want to do, or like that's where you see yourself being. And someone who, and it didn't even have to be my shop. If he'd have went somewhere, I wish people, not everywhere does it, but I wish people would just find a good shop that cared enough to see even not just the grown up, but the kids, because that's your next generation that keeps coming back in, and it's just that's the whole reason we're even here. I'm not here to specifically just sell stuff. Like, obviously, you got to make a living. It's cool, whatever. If you can do it, selling, making a living, selling stuff, doing what you love, that's fine. But man, the whole reason I'm here, but a lot of other people in this industry are here, is because it's for the love of the sport. Archery, whether it's target archery, 3D, hunting, it doesn't even have to be archery hunting. If it's just rifle hunting, whatever, the whole outdoor sport, whether it's fishing, dude, that's someone who's passionate about that. That's what keeps the next generation of it going. Because, like you said, some people don't always grow up in archery
Yeah.
or grow up in hunting in general. I've had guys come in here who are grown. They're my age or younger or older, who's never shot a bow or never bow hunted. Their parents didn't do it, but they got buddies that do it. Like, man, my buddy's bow hunted all his life or bow hunted, blah, blah. And he comes in here and he told me you were the guy to come see. Dude, that experience right there, like off the rip, he's very, like, some people would say they're ignorant to it. He's not dumb. He's not stupid. He just doesn't know what
Yeah.
he needs. So as long as you just got to steer those guys in the right direction and make that experience good. So when he goes out and tries that experience for the first time, that he doesn't necessarily feel like he failed, or he feels like he's at least got the best, momentum forward to experience everything. Because hunting has got so many different things in experience. Like you've talked about killing your biggest deer on public, you know, it doesn't matter what size animal someone kills. That experiences changes for everybody. It's like that kid, man. That's
100%.
the first deer he's ever shot with a bow. He's 9. It was just a doe. That's fine. Like, man, that deer could have been 300 pounds for all that kid knew. And that's fine, because like that's the experience, dude. And the level that speaks to someone is just, you can't put a price on that.
No.
And so like I think the biggest thing is helping people who are new, is just don't make them feel dumb. Like, you just try to, like, you almost have to try to bring it down to a base level and look. There's a lot of expensive stuff. There's a lot of product. There's going to be a lot of stuff that you're going to read reviews on, and it's like a rabbit hole, dude. Anyone who knows archery or gets into it, dude, you can get down a rabbit hole in everything: arrows, bows, platforms, stands, sticks, anything in hunting, dude. It just, then what happens, someone who doesn't know, they get overwhelmed. They're like, man, I don't know what I need.
Yeah.
So, like, get me in the right direction. And that's where the whole point of this is just getting someone who locally to you that will just get you in the right direction. Just be honest, because that gets you, I feel like that gains you more sales or more people when you're just honest with people. I
Yeah.
mean, I've had people come here before that's like, man, I bought this bow years ago, and whether they bought it new, used, don't matter. It's like, wasn't really what I wanted, but they kind of pushed it on me. So this was the brand they wanted to sell. Like, man, I'm not here to sell a brand, period. I'm sponsored by brands, but I'm not here to sell a specific brand. I tell you that because I'm here to sell whatever's going to be beneficial or best for you. Because when you leave the door or you leave and go hunting, that is your product, your bow, and your money spent. You may have worked all summer, and a teenager spent all his grass cutting money on a bow. You know,
And I've seen that too.
I'm not here to sell
Yeah.
him all. You got to buy Bowtech, or you got to buy Matthews, or you got to buy, man. It's like you said, the whole question about what kind of, do you take that guy and put him in a package deal bow and give him good accessories and get him in the right direction that way? I agree with that. And I think it's the same way with like what you sell too. Like, you have product that you believe in that's good, and just be honest with people. That goes a long way, because then you're not just building a customer based relationship, you're just building a personal relationship with these people. Because when they come back, man, some, like I said, some of my best friends I ever made was that way. Like, that's how I met to me through archery. People get so gung ho on certain brands, and that's fine if you want to be, you know, die hard brand on whatever the product is.
Yeah.
But, being honest with someone and be like, man, well, if this doesn't shoot good for you, don't buy it just because I shoot it. Shoot and buy what you like because everyone, man, you're gonna shoot all these bows. Someone's gonna like the draw cycle, this one better, the grip on this one better. If you want to learn to potentially tune or become a bow tech of yourself at home, which one's a little easier to use without a bow press if you don't have access to a press? So, man, we could talk a long time about stuff like this. So,
Yeah, man. No, and I agree. And like, that's a big part of it is that there's all kinds of different, people when they're starting off, they kind of need guided in a certain direction, or maybe
Mhm.
just, my example of that was when I was a bow tech, I used to make a point. There's a nail in the wall, and I would hang my bow up right there. And if somebody asked, hey, what should I do with this and that? I'd be like, this is what I use. So I can
Mhm.
tell you about what I use. And if they pick something up and it's like, I'll be honest with you, I never shot it, but I'll let you shoot it, and if you like it, then by all means. But,
Yeah,
this is what I use, this is what I trust. That way, I'm not, just blowing smoke and trying to sell you something. I actually trust this stuff. And, that a big part of that is releases for me. Like, I view releases as a piece
absolutely.
of safety equipment. I don't see it as like a necessarily a brand die hard thing, this and that, but it's something that, that was one of my key points, is like, if I'm gonna push you to buy anything that's more expensive than average, it's gonna be a release, because to me, that's safety equipment, man. Like, you don't want anything that even has a remote possibility of failing. So I know what I use and I know what I like, and this is what I
Yeah.
pick. But man, last thing you want to do is, something break, or, you're at full draw and something happens. So it's not gonna happen with X, Y, and Z. I know that. But you go ahead and shoot all of them and figure out what you trust, because that's the key. Like, this industry, the people that are in this, the people that do this, and especially if you've been around for a while and it's not just a new guy, they can sniff out BS from a long ways away, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so trust is huge on that side of things, just to get people at a baseline where, you know, they've tried a couple things out and they can form their own opinions and figure out what works for them. That's always been huge to me.
And I feel like we're pretty blessed really because like there's so many people in this industry. Like unless you just buy really, really like below the baseline product, so many people in the industry, whether they're well, don't matter what the brands, they have a lot of really good stuff out there.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of these companies are pretty good about product testing and, not just putting something out there because I can make a lot of money on this product.
Yep.
Like, and releases specifically, there's a lot of brands and there's a lot of releases that all favor each other. But like you said, if when you buy a really good one, it you can tell. You can notice the difference in a really cheap one and a really good one. But I feel like the companies have done pretty good in making a really good baseline of releases that someone isn't just gonna have a lot of failures. I mean, they can
Yeah.
happen because mass production stuff happens, but a lot of companies will make stuff right. If you ever have an issue with a release, the shop or somebody will take care of you about it. But yeah, I would agree. Good releases go a long way because I've had people come in that said, "Man, I wish I'd have had a backup release something," and like, "Man, I went to draw on this deer and something happened and it misfired or it broke or I dropped it, something." And you know, a good release goes a long way because a lot is riding on. There's a lot of pieces that the success rides on, whether it's you yourself, the bow, the arrow, the rest. But a release, that is what you're drawing with, and you're trusting that it's going to hold up and not
Yep.
punch you in the mouth. And I remember I've heard stories, people like, man, I don't want nothing to do with no back tension, hands release. I remember the first time I ever shot one of those things, I was 12. My dad got me one. I was
Ugh.
terrified to shoot the thing because I've heard all these stories about, man, I want to draw a thing back, punched myself in the mouth and knocked their teeth out or broke their
Yeah.
nose or blood. It was like, it's terrifying. I still
Usually
hear people
user
that say,
error too. I'll add that in. It's
it
usually
is,
user
yeah,
error,
yeah,
you
it
know?
is user error, but like, you know, it is, yeah. I mean, most of the time it is user error, but it's kind of funny that, I brought that up because I've never actually busted my nose or broke nothing doing that, but people, they buy a cheap release or something, and that's what happens.
Yeah.
And it's like you do get what you pay for sometimes on the release end. That's why most, and that I feel like that falls into handheld releases a lot.
Oh, yeah.
You can, man, I'm a firm believer in on a handheld release, just it's like you said, I'm not a pushy sales guy, but if I gotta point someone in a direction release and it's a handheld, buy a good one.
Yep.
Just buy a good one because it speaks volumes if you ever shoot a cheap one and then you shoot a nice one, or you had a cheap one and you bought an expensive one, high-end brand. You're like, "Man, why didn't I buy this the first time?" Because then you would have saved money. Really, you bought the cheap one, then you bought an expensive one. Whether it's the same time or not, you spent more money because you bought 2.
Yeah.
But, when you buy a good one, it's like, "Oh, I see the difference." And those cheap ones, man, like, you'll whether it's a spring mechanism or something, if that thing fails, and then that person's like, "Alright, I'm done with that." So,
Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
would agree with
It can
that.
it
That's
can
a good
turn
point.
somebody off, you know? Like
Very
like
fast.
and I'm kinda going through all this right now because uh, my girlfriend just recently picked up archery, and so, like, she's literally like this is, like, week 2 of her shooting a bow at all. And, I'm starting her off now that way that she can practice all throughout summer. By, September, she'll be, ready for
Yep.
hunting season. And, she's been picking it up and doing great, but one of the things that we got into was, a handheld release, and she's shooting a Matthews Chill, and, got her set up with some good arrows, got a good rest on there, everything's all good to go, good sight. Got her into a handheld release, and we got her shooting a goat. And like
Oh,
a big
yeah.
part of that is that's what I shoot, and I trust the thing. And on
Good
top of that,
release.
yeah, it can go from a thumb button to a hinge. So we
Yeah.
started her off with a thumb button, and then once week 2 came around, now we got her shooting it as a hinge. And it's a night and day difference for her. She's tightening up her groups way more with the hinge, but that was a big part of that. Was again, it's a release I trust, and then that one, for example, just throwing that out because that's what I use. But again, that 2 releases in one kind of situation where she can play with it. She's new to archery. We're gonna figure out what works best for her, and that was a good solution. So
I've shot the goat for a lot of years. I've shot the guts out of
yeah,
one of them things, and man, if you look across the board, so many really great archers. Kyle Douglas, who you've had on here, shoots a goat. Like, that
yeah,
release is kinda tried and true. It's made a name for itself for a lot of years, and man, they're solid. They're really good.
yeah.
Super
I
crisp,
mean,
and you got so much adjustability. Cause see, I think that's the biggest point I make in a handheld release from a cheap one to an expensive one, is when you buy high end, whether it's True Ball, Ultra View, not Carter, Carter has some stuff, but, the Stan
yeah,
Onyxes, any of those, they have so much adjustability. So you can pick and choose, like, your finger configuration, 3, 4 finger, 2 finger. You got the barrel adjustments, and like you said, that one will do hinge and button. So if someone's like, I don't know that I wanna shoot a hinge, I really like a thumb button. That one's a great option just because you can transfer it from one to the other. So you can immediately test it like, I don't know if I like this," you can go back. Or if like, "Oh, shoot, I love a hinge." Just shoot it as a hinge, you know?
yeah,
So,
yeah,
I think you pay for quality in a thumb release for sure, or any
yeah.
high-end handheld.
100%. For me, it's been something that, like, I was shooting it as a hinge for 3 years. Literally 2 weeks ago, I switched it over to a thumb button just to get out of the cycle of shooting a hinge. Not because I'm gonna stop, but because I'm like, let me see. I'm gonna go to my couple local ASAs here for the next few weeks and see if I'm performing better with the thumb. And if not, I'm gonna
Yeah,
switch back to the hinge. But the fact that I've got that in the same release, it helps me out a ton. So
yeah.
and that was the thing for her too, is like, we're gonna figure out what you like. We're gonna figure out what
Uh-huh.
you shoot best. And so this is a great way to just switch between the two and figure it out. But man, we could talk all day about the shop
Ooh.
stuff and getting into
Yeah,
gear and all that stuff. But I wanna get into some of the ASA stuff because you're shooting at a level that's leagues and leagues above me, and about every morning I'll get a couple pictures or a couple videos of inside out 12 rings from you.
yeah,
And I'm
yeah,
sitting there like, son of a gun?
yeah.
So, when did the
I've
whole
been shooting a
ASA
lot.
thing kick off for you, man? And how'd you get to where you are? And, when did you start shooting
So,
professionally?
man, ASA, like, I didn't even know what that was when I was 12 years old. So I kinda tell you, like, all this really started back when I was not much older than the gentleman that was 9 that I was telling you about. My dad always shot, like, 3D in the yard and, um, stuff in the yard, little targets, and he hunted. And I remember, I had to be somewhere around 10. Actually, a place up here, not far from home, public hunting area. At the time, a guy would put on a local 3D shoot up there, kind of like at the host stand area, and we was up there
Yeah.
turkey hunting. We was up there turkey hunting one day, and we come by the check-in station. There's all these cars. That's like, what in the world's going on? So we pull up, man. It's a 3D tournament. I was like, didn't even know what that was, but man, like we walked in, met the people, and they were like, "Yeah, we're open till such and such time. The range is open. Come back and shoot." Man, I drove my dad. That's how he's always started the stories. Like, you drove me crazy going back to shoot that tournament, and all the way home, man, I bugged him out. Can we go shoot? Can we go shoot? And all I had was like a hunting setup. I didn't know nothing about that stuff. So I get there and I see all these bows with these stabilizers and all kinds of crazy stuff. So it's like really crazy to just see the equipment, and this is probably 2010-ish, somewhere in there neighborhood.
Yeah.
2011, because I started shooting ASAs. First one I ever shot was 2010. This might have been 2009, but I know 2011 was the first year I ever podiumed as a senior eagle in the ASA in Kentucky. But at that tournament, the local tournament, lo and behold, I come back and they said, "Yeah, you just going out there and shoot with that group right there." And I was like, "Okay." And the chances of this was like just I would have never been able to pick this, and it never could have just happened on its own like it did. It was a meant to be thing. The first person I ever met and shot a 3 tournament with was Leon Pittman, who started Last Chance Archery. So, and if
Wow.
anybody in archery knows anything, they know Last Chance Archery. And I just happened to be my shop's 30 minutes from them. So I know all those people, the Clarks, I know all those guys. And he was shooting, and I'd just seen him not too long ago, his best friend, Wood, what they called him, Woody. And they always shot together. So lo and behold, we go out through there shooting a 3D tournament. And I didn't even shoot a bad score. I want to say I still remember I think I was 1 down or 2 down or something. Just shooting. They'd tell me where to aim and how far it was. I didn't know nothing about scoring. And dude, it was like the coolest experience and the most fun I'd ever had. And I remember my dad was like, how do you get into this? Because that's everybody's question when they come in the shop or go to shoot. How do you get into tournament archery? They think you got to be so good or qualify. Man, you literally just, if you got a bow, go shoot it.
Yep.
But people's like, man, I'm so nervous. I don't want to go embarrass myself. Man, don't worry about that. Just go shoot and have fun, because you can get a group, and it's the most fun you really can have. It takes it from shooting in your backyard to just a different level. And so shot with Leon, got to know him, and at that time they would hold a league at their facility where they made the presses, and it's made out of an old chicken house, is what it is. So we shoot in an old chicken house, man. I remember going there during like Mondays, Tuesday nights, and met all these people and started shooting with them. And then you start getting into the product, blah blah blah. But as at that point, I started shooting more local 3D tournaments, get to know people, and someone said, "You ought to go to the ASAs." I said, What is ASA? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know anything about that. And the first one I ever went to was as I think Fort Gordon, as it was the military base down here in Augusta, Georgia. It's like, oh, that's close. We could go, because my dad didn't have a whole lot of money to be spending just to go on these random trips or whatever. So we went to that one. And the following year, we hit like 2 more. And I remember the first year, I need to get my plaques up, but I podiumed in 2011, tied for third with a kid. And then 2012 on, that's when we like started hitting them all. We shot every ASA, hit the full year. And I've shot every single ASA since 2012. I ain't missed a single one
That's
since
incredible,
then.
man.
So I shot through 2012, and any of the plaques that I podiumed or won or whatever, I kept them all, and I'd keep them in the year and in order. So I shot through like the kids' age through your teenage years up to like 17 or 18, 16 area. And then you could move. At that time, they had a lot of different classes like Open B, Open C, Open A, which were like unknown half and half ranges and stuff. So you just move out of one. I went from the youth to like Open B. And for people who have never shot it, if you win enough or, podium enough where they can like win out or kick out of that
Yeah.
class. So you get kicked to the next class. And then, as you win out, one out of B, one out of Open A, then you get into semi pro. And then, my first year semi-pro was the only year that I didn't like move out my first year. And then my second year of semi-pro, which would have been 2019, one out of it in 2020, right when the pandemic and COVID hit. That was my rookie year as a pro. First year shooting for Matthews. I'd shot different brands before, and that was my first year shooting for Matthews, and
Yeah.
won rookie of the year in it, and then just kind of learning, eh, you know you almost kind of feel like you learn your place and where you want to be in that class. Because once you move into the pro class, man, that is the best. I've shot with a lot of great people, and every class I've been in has been good. But the pro class is it's a super awesome, great experience with and a great group of guys. I love that class more than any class I've ever shot, and yeah, I've just shot it ever since. And it's like you said, it is an elite group of guys. It's very hard to get everything to come together on certain weekends where you have both good days work. You have a
Yeah.
really good round the first day and a really good round the second day. But man, my archery really stemmed off that first experience with Leon Pittman at Last Chance. And I'll still see him. He's like, "Boy, I can't believe you're still shooting this stuff," and just gives me up the country about it. But it's really awesome to see, like, looking back on it now, all the people I've met and the places I've been, and you know, the archery communities, it's a large community, but it's relatively small, especially the tournament archery world. So the people you meet, it goes a long way and makes a big influence on people. And that's, you know, over the years now that I've been shooting kind of at the pro level, you meet all these kids. Cause see, I remember a lot of people know her as Sharon Wallace, but Sharon Carpenter, they do this future champions thing where your little senior eagles, your junior eagles, and eagle class kids that are like 6 to 10, 6 to 12, they do this thing where you shoot with the pros. And at that time, man, uh, they would take you to the practice range. You'd shoot a little bit with some kids. And I remember the first pro that ever got paired up with was Sharon. Well, it was a guy named Ron, but they were like in a couple. They was just signing two pros to two kids, and we was just on the same target together. And Sharon Wallace was there, and I've now known Sharon ever since that shoot in Augusta in 2010. So it's like
That's
it's
awesome,
crazy.
man.
Yeah, it's crazy to see all the people that um I met. I was like, man, one day you kind of want to be there. Every kid has a person they idolize, whether it's a certain shooter or a certain class or something. And now it's like kind of like a full circle moment. It's kind of crazy to look at now the kids that I see at the future champions that I spend time with, like that was me then. And it's
Yeah.
kinda cool because I remember where I started and where I am now, and then you see the kids that they started exactly where you were, and it's just cool to see where archery can take you. But the ASA's been really good to me. I've had a lot of great success. The pro class had a little success, but it's just whether you have a great day or not, man, the people on that range are incredible. Super awesome guys.
I've had nothing but the best experiences with my ASA, and I've only been in it for 3 years. And I started off, man, like I've been so incredibly fortunate. Again, this and we'll tie this all back right now. I met Hunter in a bow shop. First off, me and him butted heads like no other when we first met too,
Uh-huh.
because I was, a big heavy arrow high FOC guy at the time. Hunter was like, "You ding dong, what are you doing? You got to do this and
Yeah.
that." And he
Yeah.
got on me pretty. I still don't hear the end of that, by the way. I've changed how I run my arrows completely, and I still never gonna hear the end of it. But
No,
we
you
we
won't.
ended up just not as long as I live, but we got to be, friends through that interaction, and I remember like my first year like hunting with him and doing all that stuff. He's like, "Hey, you really ought to get into ASA," and for me, I was like, I'll start shooting some 3D locally or whatever. It'll make me a better bow hunter. And he was like, "No, like you should come to Foley with me." And so I went
Uh-huh.
to Foley. That was my first ever ASA like 3 years ago, and I just shot men's pins 30, and I shot abysmal, by the way. But I mean, the first
Oh,
freaking night
god.
we're in Foley, right? We get there, and again, I'm very fortunate because of the friends that I have, and because of, the Hunter in particular, and, obviously Cheyenne now too, and like all these people that are really prominent. The first night we're in Foley, I'm sitting down at some seafood joint in Foley having dinner with Hunter, Kyle Douglas, Tim Gillingham, and I'm like,
Oh
I'm the
gosh.
odd one out. But like, what a crazy experience! Like that
Yeah,
being
what
my
was that
first.
experience like with Tim?
Oh, dude, listen, I got told everything I don't know about archery. That's the first thing that.
Absolutely.
But that's your normal experience with Tim. But amazing group of guys, and I think by like the last night, if I remember right, it either would have been that first year, maybe my second year shooting ASA. We're at another restaurant, and that was dinner with you, and I mean, we had like 20 people. Long table. I want to say we were eating Mexican food somewhere, but we were at long table.
Oh,
Hunter's
yeah.
there. I mean, packed, and nothing but the best of people all the way around.
Yeah.
And the amount that I learned and what I got to experience was just unreal. Unreal, especially being so early into that stuff. To now, like, every time I go to Foley, I'm swinging by the Gold Tip booth and talking to Tim and Kyle, and I'm swinging by, the Bowtech booth, and I see Paige and I see Levi out on the practice range, and it's like all these people that, I've said it before, and I'm probably beating a dead horse here, but like those same people that maybe you're not doing this right now, that you're watching on YouTube or whatever else, and you're like, man, that's awesome. I love their stuff. You're sitting there, at a food truck eating with them, hanging out, talking,
Yeah,
learning
they're
from them.
normal people.
And it's
They
it's
don't
this small community. Like it really
yeah,
is.
they
You
don't
go to
put
the
themselves
village,
above anybody, man. There's like
100%. Yeah.
Dan McCarthy, some people's like, man, I'll see people come in, they ask, well, what's Dan McCarthy like or Levi, man? Like, Dan's like a super great friend of me. I've talked to Dan so many times and called him on the phone when I had questions or even just to talk, man. It's
Yeah.
that it's like you didn't know Tim Gillingham, and then like someone from the outside perspective, you see Kyle Duggs and Tim, like they're like local archery celebrities, like that's when
Yeah.
you're there, that's the guys that everyone like people like, holy cow, that's Tim or that's Kyle or that's Levi. But man, if you walk up to them, they talk to you like your normal, everyday person. They're
Every time.
just good all around people. And the archery community is full of that. And I think even like shooting local 3D is good. And I think people sometimes get intimidated by ASA or IBO or any sort of big shoot. Like, man, just go shoot it. I tell people, I have so many people ask me, man, how do I get into that? Like, dude, get your bow and just go shoot it. You will not regret it. It's just an experience that I can't really like explain or express, but you just go do it. And that it's like you, it's kind of like Hunter saying, man, you need to come to Foley with me. You need to shoot an ASA. And it's like, well, I've shot local 3D. It's fun. It's different.
Yeah.
That experience
Totally
at their
different.
shoots, so different. And
Yeah.
that's where you build the connections and you meet the people. That's how I met you. It's how I met Hunter. All the people that we talk about, people you had on these podcasts and people that you'll have on the podcast in the future, that's how you meet them. And it's just, like you said, it all comes full circle and ties a loop together. Like it's just the industry that's everyone gives back to each other, really, in my opinion. Like so many people, Tim is one of the most knowledgeable people. You can fuss and fight with Tim on opinions. He will tell you why this is the best thing you need to shoot, or gold tip's the best arrow ever made. And whether you believe not or not that or not is, that's up to you. But he is super knowledgeable and he will always try to help someone in the direction. That may be his opinion of what the direction he thinks you should go, but he will help you and he'll get you going. And Tim's done a lot for me. I remember growing up, my dad would always go because I was shy. I wouldn't go talk to those people as a kid. I was like, Tim Gillingham, man, I'm already short. Tim's up here. I'm like looking up at him and I'm like, I don't know. I want to go talk to that big old guy. And
I think
man,
Tim's got stilts on underneath them pants, I swear.
dude, something. And I remember with like arrow questions, stabilizer questions. He's worked on my bow before I knew how to do center serving and knock pinch stuff. He does a lot of videos now. So if anyone listening like wants to learn a lot of tips, man, you can go watch any video that Tim puts out. He's got a lot of information out there. So does Paige and all these people. But I remember watching Tim Gillingham undo my D loop and reserve all my serving. He just sitting there doing it, talking to someone, having a conversation about arrows in the trailer. And I'm like watching this guy. He's like, you're not even looking at it. He just does it. It's like second nature to him. But like that, all those experiences again, like that was my experience with those people and they were good. And I shot their product for years and they still have a great product.
Yeah.
So it's like you said, you meet these people and then realize, man, like they're not as intimidating as someone may think.
No,
They're really
no.
not.
They're not, man. I'm telling you right now, like, and I'm still, I'm still a nobody in ASA. Like as far as all that stuff goes, I'm at shooting amateur classes and all that stuff. But like at the same token, again, I've been fortunate with my friends and all that stuff. But like I've got one of Gillingham's grips straight from out of his hands on my bow. I've got a stabilizer that was from Chris Hammond sitting there. Like it's like
Uh-huh.
all these people, that like you'd be like, oh man, they're pro, they're this, they're that, and it's like no, they're you get to meet them and talk to them and just the best folks. And the one thing that I will put a pin in right there is nowhere else. And I wouldn't even do this at a local shoot. And that's saying a lot because local shoots got good people. They all the shoots do, but you go to the village at any of these ASA shoots, and I do it all the time, and everybody else does too. Dude, I got no problem leaving my bow, leaving my bag, leaving all my arrows, my release, my whole chest pack, thousands of dollars in gear, leaving it outside of the building there at Foley in the middle of the village. And I know nobody's gonna mess with it. I know nobody's gonna take
No.
nothing. Like just you, everybody you meet there is your friend. It's
Yep.
it's the most
Dude,
awesome experience.
I've shot ASA since the really 2011, and have never known something to be stolen or just up and
No.
walked off and grew legs ever in my life. Like if anything was ever stolen that was a shooter's, it was stolen outside of the tournament, the shoot.
Yeah.
Like someone was traveling, they were either coming in, it was at a hotel, something that somewhere someone broke into the car and stole something.
Yep.
Dude, that's like the only place now that you could just like really like let your kids just roam and you don't have to stress about them getting stolen, walking off with, someone picked it up and gone. Like it's everyone looks out for each other and everyone looks out for each other's kids too. And it's
Yeah.
pretty cool now because I remember growing up, we could, dude, my mom and dad would go do whatever and I'd be on the practice range all day. So many people would be like, where even is Sam or where's this so and so? And it's like we'd be all a group of kids that's 12, 13 years old. We're all down here at the practice range shooting, no supervision. We're just shooting. And I see kids run around all the time at the shoots now, and their parents will be around, obviously, but like you don't have to really worry about them as
No.
much. I mean,
No.
there'll be kids they may get into trouble, but you don't have to worry about them. You couldn't just let your kids do that in Walmart anymore.
No,
You know
no,
what I
and I
mean?
mean,
So it's
but
like
what
it's that community that looks back
yeah,
or looks out for each other, and they're constantly giving. Um, and that's like you build that relationship with archery, and then like you also build those relationships that isn't archery. Like personal relationships, your friendships, and then that's how you end up going hunting with some of these people and just different things like that because the community is so. It's just I don't know a really great word to put for it, but it keeps giving into itself and other people. They
yeah,
like to see people be successful.
agreed. And to capitalize on it too, I'll share a quick story. Like, Foley this last year, and if I find this young man's name or I remember it, I'll mention it or I'll put something out about it on the next podcast or something. But I'll mention it because, uh, there was a young man, I don't know, 13 years old, young kid, and I'm shooting open 40 this year. He's shooting open 40. He's in my group. Right, he's the youngest kid in the group, and he walks up on morning two to our stake, and like normal, everybody like, hey, how's it going, man? You ready? How you feeling? Blah blah blah. Just kind of small talk there, and that kid stops, and he stops me and everybody else in the group before we start shooting, and he goes, hey, we all got to go talk to the range official, or I got to go talk to the range official this morning before we, start shooting. And we're like, what you got to talk to the range official for? Like, what's
Mhm.
wrong? And he goes, I think the ink smeared or someone's hand smeared the ink on my scorecard yesterday because I checked the scores and they put me in as a 197 and I was a 177. He goes, that's not the score
Uh,
I got. And I'm like, dude, that kid right there, that is what it like the fact that, he's that young and that honest, dude, there is grown men out there that wouldn't want to say nothing about it.
yeah.
And he's like, "No." He goes, "It must have been that the ink smeared or something's wrong." Because he goes, "I know I shot a 177 and they put me down as a 197 and that's not right." Dude, that
That
is
says a
what
lot.
says a lot about that young man. It says a lot about ASA and, how he was raised, family he comes from and that
Yeah.
shoot in
Hats
general.
hats off to the
Hats off to him.
parents. Yeah,
Yeah,
big deal.
100%. So, and that's the community, and that's been my experience, with everybody I've met there. But I was blown away by, being that young and having that
Mhm.
much foresight and, thought into being like, no, somebody else is up there, but it's not me. And so that was huge. And, like I said, from a young age, those kids that are out there and the parents and all the shooters, everyone that I've experienced, had experiences with, they're that honest, and that's why.
Yeah.
That it's exactly why. That kid, he keeps that in his heart, as long as he's in there. That's the reason why you can leave all your stuff out in the middle of the village and nobody's
Mhm.
gonna touch it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's unreal. Yeah, I love
Yeah.
that community so much.
It's very good, and I mean, like I said, I've never left anything out at a shoot and something got messed with. Like, if something was ever off, it was just because, like, something naturally, like the string stretched, something crazy happened that wasn't because someone walked by and did something or
No,
took it,
no.
so,
Yeah.
yeah, it's good community for sure.
Yeah, man. Well, I don't wanna take up too much of your time today, but I gotta get into at least another topic here because 'cause I've been itching to hear about it literally since you posted it, but I'm like, podcast is gonna happen. I'm gonna talk to him about it.
Yeah.
You
Okay.
killed a slammer in November. You killed a
Yeah.
stud buck. You've been hunting the farm. Correct me if I'm wrong here. This is in Illinois, and you've been hunting that farm for 4 years, and that was the first deer you took
This
off of it.
Yeah, that was my 4th year. It would have been my 4th year, 22, 23, 24. Yeah, 4th year. It's
Yeah.
crazy how fast it goes by because I feel like I just started hunting there this year, but yeah, that's my first buck I've taken on that property, yeah. I've seen big deer, but man, it's like sometimes it's just the stars have gotta align. You know that as a hunter, and anyone
Oh
that's
yeah.
listening to this knows it just I've had some crazy experiences there, but that was, I'd never hunted out of state ever really before this time, and, 22, so my dad had, cancer at the time, and I remember going up there and hunting, and it was, like, just unreal. Because growing up, me and dad always watched the primos, the monster bucks, dude, like, you always watch all these hunting videos of, like, these
I grew up
beautiful
the same way.
bottom dude, man, I remember sitting there and, like, that was my dad's thing, VHS tapes, you're sitting in front of the TV with a glass of milk, some chocolate milk, or chocolate cookies, chip cookies or whatever, dude, and you're sitting there and you're
Yeah.
just like watching all these big old deer, and then, coming from Georgia, there's spots in Georgia you can kill big deer, but I didn't grow up in a area that's predominant for big bucks. Like, we've never had just overly large deer.
Yeah.
And I remember, my first experience going there and seeing deer, and it was like blowing your mind, like how the deer that these people have in their house or that you see in town at restaurants or out in the fields when you go by, and it's like, "Holy cow, this is what it's like." You get that experience, but yeah, super I was very blessed, and so I got into this property from the same guy I got the store from, so it kinda there again, going back to the conversation we had earlier, the connection that you make with people, I would have never I'd never really been able to pick this place, and, public you can go public land hunting, but, um running a shop in November, it's hard to say, "Alright, I'm gonna take off for a week and just go hunt somewhere," you know?
Yeah.
And so, this was, I'd actually just come off the year of killing this buck here. This was my biggest buck to date. This was the first deer that I ever had any history with, that I'd found a shed off of it, had a lot of history, seen him on camera, and, I killed this deer, biggest Georgia deer. I don't even know what my deer from Illinois scored. I didn't even have him scored. I took him straight across the taxidermist, but I killed him. That was the first year I went to Illinois hunting after that. So, you know, I felt like I'd finally kind of killed a big deer, to me, a big deer. And this was a big deer to me. And then, starting to experience the out of state hunting life. And then, like that deer I was showing you earlier, I almost killed that deer. I seen him a couple times, but there's 4 guys that we hunt with, and it's a really great group of guys, and we got a really great piece of property. The farmer's awesome, his sons are awesome, and, uh, it's worked out really great because when Tyson brought me into this, I had never experienced hunting out of state or hunting out of state with other people. So I didn't know, like, do you just have a section that you can hunt, or how does this even work? You're in a club or in a lease with somebody, but man, those guys, that deer I shot this year, we hung the stand for Tyson, the guy I bought sword from, and he wasn't even hunting. He's like, man, just go hunt it. You can be the first guy to hunt. I don't care. We all share stands. Like, I might have a stand there that's mine that I own, but it's not mine. Like, I'm only going to hunt it. We love
Yeah.
to see people in the same camp be successful. And this was our best year. I mean, I had never killed a deer there, but I've been there when other deer were killed. This year, I killed one. Um, the day before, I killed an older gentleman that hunted. We got two farms. The other farm that butts up to us, he killed one on that property. So he killed, I killed. The very last day we was there, Tyson killed a really great deer there. Neil had shot at one and hit like a limb with his arrow or something and missed one. But then we went back shotgun season and he killed one with a nice 8-pointer with a shotgun. So it was really cool to see everybody have the success. And but it's so great because we all like will help try to make sure everyone at least is in the best opportunities we can. We don't hide pictures from each other. It don't matter if that stand you've been hunting it and you switch up. It's like, man, if you want to go in there, go. So it's like I've had such a great experience with that property, and I've had a lot of this year was very kind of emotional for me because I've had a lot of ups and downs and a roller coaster of a ride at that property. I'd never been out of state, and I get to this place, and the first year I hunted was actually that year my dad had cancer. I had to fly home. His cancer got really bad while I was there, so I flew home. A few days later, Dad passed away. So the following year, very emotional for me because I grew up hunting with my dad. I grew up doing everything with my dad. We never went to the woods without each other hardly. Almost every turkey or deer that I've ever killed has been filmed by him at some point. There is film of it somewhere. He had a little camera recorder, man, and he recorded all of it. And I had I had grew up being very blessed to successfully take a lot of deer with a bow successfully without losing them or, shooting them and not retrieving them. So that year, had he passed, my first year there, I'd put out my cameras. And what's really neat about this place is it's like, man, it's like it's yours. It's like you own it. The farmers trust you. The people up there are awesome. Like, we hang our own stands, our own cameras. We can hunt where we want to on the area, and put my cameras out and kind of found a spot that none of the other guys had really been to, and found this buck. And he wasn't no 170, 160 inch giant, but he was big to me. And I'd put myself on this deer, and I'd seen him, and I got a chance to shoot him, and I just a really hard shot, and I made a good shot. But the problem was, in the heat of the moment, I was only missed the yardage by like a yard and a half, but I hit him just too low
Yeah.
and didn't kill him, man. And that really took like the wind out of my sails, that I got myself on this deer, and I thought he was like, heat of the moment he's chasing those. I thought he was 40 yards. He was like 41 and a half yards, and I just shot him just low enough, thinking he might duck or something. Hit him too low. Never found him. I was like devastated because I hate losing deer. And I'm like, oh my gosh, man, like, got all these emotions running. So that's the first year hunting without my dad. Lost this deer. And I'm like, oh man. And a couple days later, that was on like the first, November 1st. My dad passed on the second. November the 3rd. This is kind of crazy. So November the 3rd, I'm sitting on this alfalfa field, and I'm in the one of the stands. One of the guys had already killed a deer in, and this deer comes out. Some does come out, and I'll never forget this. This was like probably one of the most humbling moments I've ever had in my life. I was sitting there. A friend of mine had just killed a really great 8-pointer in Illinois a couple hours from me. We was texting about it, and I put my phone in my pocket, and I remember hearing this loud, just aggressive grunt. I looked up this alfalfa field 120, 30 yards away from me. Out come this guy right here. I mean, I just, not this deer literally, but like a frame. I was like, the most beautiful. If anyone's ever said, I want to kill a big 8-pointer, this is what every 8-pointer anyone ever describes they want to kill. It was him. Come out
Yeah.
trying to push this doe around. I was like, I'm come from Georgia, man, like 115-inch 8-pointer. You're like shaking, like, oh my God, I'm about to rip him, and I had shot so many 110-inch 8-pointers and just get so fired up. And here comes out this. I wouldn't say I'm the best at judging, but if he wasn't 150-inch 8, he wasn't an inch, dude. It just
Wow.
gorgeous, huge deer. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is actually happening. And he's coming out across the field, and that sucker's going above me, and I hit that grunt tube, and that sucker come down from 110 to 45.5 yards. I'm just, like, beside myself, like,
Whoa.
this is happening. He's in the middle of an alfalfa field, and I'm about to rip him. Because now listen, in my mind, I was like, "I can't miss this deer." Like, he is this is perfect. Textbook, like, where you want him, and I made the biggest mistake ever, and that deer was he wasn't walking fast, but he was just not necessarily trotting me. He's just making his way down there. He's like, someone done grunted at me, and I want to figure out what it was. And I drew back, man. When I macked at that deer. Never do that again. At least at that distance. When he stopped, he looked at me. I squeezed that thing off, and dude, I missed that deer by a foot in front of him because he spun away so fast. He just
Yeah.
whew, he spun away so fast. I shot in front of him. The deer didn't even know what happened. He walked to the edge of the kind of bounced to the edge of the field, and he's just standing there like, "What the heck?" And I'm like, what just happened? I ain't never shot a deer and lost it, nor I ain't missed a deer since I was like 10 years old, okay? And being again, like you think in your mind, like I'm a pro archer, I shoot a lot of 3D. Out there, oh man, I'm gonna smash this deer. And it was like the most humbling moment that I've probably arguably ever felt in hunting because I was like, couldn't believe I just missed the most beautiful deer that you like could picture of. Like not some crazy non-typical, like everyone who wants to shoot a big, beautiful 8-pointer. I was like, there
Yeah.
he is in the flesh, this 250+ pound deer, and he's just gorgeous, dude. Dark rack, tall tines. It was like do the T, what you dream of. And I was like, there he is. And next thing you know, he's gone. And I didn't hit him. And I'm like, what in the world is going on here? And that really, man, you wanna talk about the roller coasters there because you go from, oh, you shot a deer 3 days before, didn't find it, so you kinda back down in all the emotions with my dad passing, and then here comes this deer, dude, my heart's beating out of my chest. I bet that deer heard my heartbeat. That son gun had to be, like, thumping out of my skin. I was like, couldn't even hold myself still, and then, you've prepared and worked so hard, and then that situation happens where you miss, and I remember calling. I didn't tell many people about me missing that deer for a long time. So people was like, "You missed a deer?" I'm like, "Dude, anybody can miss a deer." And you could have a
Yeah.
podcast with Levi, Kyle, any great shooter. Someone has missed a deer. It happens. It's that experience with hunting. But man, it taught me so much. It taught me so much about hunting and about myself and just the respect for the game and the animals and everything. And man, that was the most crazy roller coaster I'd ever felt. So ended up not ever seeing that deer again. We don't know whatever happened to him. He was like a ghost. He showed up and he was gone. Um, Fast forward to the following year, same property, another great deer. You saw that one back there that I showed you. And like first evening I'm there, saw the deer. It's like, man, I was on him. Weather kind of come in, and the weather's really what screwed me up more than anything. We didn't really have good success. Come home and being that 1st of November, and at that time, that was around the 1st of November, archery in a shop's really busy, so I couldn't make the second trip up. And
Yeah.
lo and behold, one of the guys that went with me on the first trip, he ended up killing that deer uh first day back. So it's just cool to see the experience of your peers that you hunt with have success. But I'm like, man, like dude, like I've had so much hardship and heartache at this property. Like what am I going through? And anyone who's a bow hunter can probably relate to this, and you can relate to this. It's all that hard grind, and it's all that momentum you're putting forward, and stuff's trying to beat you down. That when everything comes together and you kill that first animal, or you succeed and kill your first buck on public, or whatever the case may be, it's like early bow hunters. I've heard people like, man, I just get blowed at or get busted, and when they finally kill one, it's just that accomplishment. It's a different feeling.
Yeah.
So here we are. Um, didn't have no success, and I'm in my and I go there this year, and I'm like, "Man," I get so caught up in this property and caught up in your head and thinking like, should I be here? Should I hunt here? Then you get certain deer on camera, so you want to target certain deer. And this was probably, I got there on like Halloween, October 31st or so. I went up and we'd had some good deer on camera. I'm like, this is the year, man. This is the year. I'm gonna kill a deer this year here. And I started chasing my tail, trying to figure out where could I be set up on a deer or where should I be. And at the time, like we wasn't really seeing any mature deer, mature does. Movement was slow, and I was getting kind of discouraged, like a lot of hunters get. And I remember the day I shot that deer was November the 3rd. So I'm literally on the edge of this alfalfa field that I missed that giant out of. I'm literally hunting right in the woods from there. And earlier that day, I was just kind of getting in my head like, man, like I'm getting down to about middle of the week, so I don't have many days left before I go home. Like, I get so caught up in my head, and honestly, you get kind of caught up in the success of killing an animal as your success of the trip. And I remember going to that stand that we hung. As I was walking through the field, I'm like, man, I walked by the stand that I missed him out of. I'm like, man, like you start reminiscing and thinking about everything. And I remember climbing up in that stand, dude, and kind of stood up and I sat there, leaned up against a tree, and I was thinking, like, man, like I got so caught up in chasing a specific deer or worried about killing the said deer. And I'm like, you know what? I should just be thankful that I even get to experience a place like this, because so many people don't. And at that time, I had never got to up till being able to go a few years earlier than that. I had never experienced that. I dreamed about it, grew up thinking about it, and I was like, I should just be so thankful that I just get to hunt in a place like this. The property is just gorgeous, like you see on TV and YouTube channels, man. And I remember sitting there, and uh, the day before was the day Dad passed, and I was just kind of reminiscing on the good times. And I was talking to the Lord, and I said, Lord, I get so caught up in thinking killing a deer is my success, but just being here is an experience in its own. And I said, Lord, if I'm supposed to kill a deer, I'm not asking you to send me a deer my way. I'm just praying that if I'm meant to kill a deer, it's a deer that I'm meant to kill. And if it's your will and I'm supposed to experience that, great. If not, I'll praise you and be thankful for it in its own, because like until it's my time to kill deer, I'm gonna keep coming. If it takes me 10 years, I'm gonna keep coming. Just I love the experience of that place. But getting around to it, long story short, sitting there talking to the Lord, and I was just stood up, and I'm on the edge of this ridge, and there's a big drop off beside me, and they come up out of those ridges out of foul field. And I'd only seen 2 or 3 deer in the day. It was real slow, and it's probably 15 minutes before dark. It's still decent enough light. I'm sitting there leaned up against a tree like this, and I hear, and it's a sound that any hunter or any bow hunter knows, like, that's a deer. It ain't no squirrel. It ain't no peeping Tom walking around messing with you.
Yeah.
It's a deer. And I'm like, oh boy, dude, it's just got that step to it. I said, oh man. I remember looking over my right side shoulder and coming off that ridge, coming out of that bottom up on that ridge, all I saw was body, and it was long. Couldn't see no horns. I was like, oh shoot. I spun back out to my left around the tree looking, and I heard it stop walking. I was like, oh shoot, did it see me like spin? I'm thinking in my mind, I'm all like, you're amped up. Like, what is it? How big is it? What is it? All that anticipation that every hunter experiences. And there's like an old 4-wheel trail roadway there that the people have on the property, and they'll walk those road beds a lot. At least on that ridge specifically, they'll put scrapes down it. And I'm looking around this tree, and I'm like, dang, I hope he didn't see me. Next thing I know, here, and I look over my right shoulder, and all I saw was that right side or his left side with all those points just in a
Yeah.
row. I was like, oh, snap. And I just remember grabbing my bow, and I spun, and this guy is like, dude, he's less than 20 yards. He's right there. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I mean, big old body and long. I knew it was a mature deer. At that point, I was like, he's mature. He's big enough. I'm killing him, or at least I'm going to try. And
Oh
dude,
yeah.
I remember that dude walking through there, and I drew back, and he got through one window, and I was like trying to get a shot on him, and he stopped, and he was in this V of a tree, and I like leaned up against a tree going to try and smoke one in him. He's all I know is he's top pin. I remember calling Hunter Hogan and talking about him. I was like, dude, he's right there. It's top pin all day. He's gonna die. And so you're amped up, every bow hunter, you're feeling all these adrenaline, and that sucker walks into my shooting window, and I'm like, I didn't even really have to like do anything to stop him. He just kind of stopped, and I was like, oh shoot, and I just boom. I remember when that release went off, dude. I hit right behind the pin and I smashed him. And that sun gun run out of there bulldozing over every tree. And I was like, oh my God. And I'm telling you, Dean, from the time I heard him walking, probably to the time I put an arrow in him, it probably wasn't no longer than maybe a minute and a half or something. It was really short, a minute to minute and a half. I don't even know if it was 2 minutes. It was super fast.
Wow.
It feels like an eternity, but dude, like I'm telling you, I heard footsteps. I looked, I seen a body, and I tried to get around the back of the tree to make sure he wasn't going to skirt behind me and go to the alfalfa field. And next thing I know, dude, the dude's set. I remember after he run off, I ranged it was 17 yards. I was like, and it would
Gosh.
happen that fast. I bet from the time I saw him to the time I aired it, couldn't have been 30, 40 seconds. It was that fast. Like, boom, on me that quick. And that deer run out of there, and I just remember like losing it, man. I was like, holy cow, because it's all those emotions and all the grind, and I don't get to hunt out of state as much as like you guys get to, and hunt as long as like Hunter and Jeff and some of you guys get to do. But like, dude, that moment right there, that was like that full circle moment. I couldn't, it was so hard to put into words what I felt, because it was like I'd missed deer there, I'd lost deer there, and I'd seen big deer. And that was like the first deer out of state I killed. And I just remember seeing that deer run out of there, and I was like beside myself that it happened, because at that point, I didn't know how big he was. I didn't care if he was a 130-inch deer or a 170-inch deer. He was big to me, and it was just that moment that it happened, and it worked for me. And man, dude, I was so emotional. I called my wife. I was crying. I was like, I can't believe this just happened. I'm like shaking, dude. I can't even hold myself still. And I remember getting down and finding my arrow. I ended up calling another friend of mine and talking to him a little bit. And I was like so amped up that I was like, man, I think I hit him good, but I don't know. I was like, the arrow went through, but he ended up breaking the knock off. So the live knock, I didn't see the live knock run, but maybe 10 yards, and it went out. I was like, man, I don't know. Like I'm freaking out, just because in the past I just had those struggles and
Yeah.
had those experiences where like it didn't work out good. So in your mind, the first thing is to think like, oh man, like is what I'm thinking really what it is? Like, did it actually happen? And man, like I really had such just it's like shooting your first deer all over again, because for me that kind of was there. And being able to just experience that and retrieve the deer, we get to tracking it. And once the arrow got all the way through him, dude, the blood trail, like, I remember the point when I realized that I saw a blood pool about this big of just blood and bubbles everywhere, and I was like, "That son gun's dead." And I remember walking to the end of the ridge, we got down to the bottom ridge, and the guy, um, that I got the store from, he was like, "Man, he's laying right there." I lost it, dude. I run over to that deer, and I picked that son gun up. I was, like, beside myself. And what was crazy was earlier that day, I'd been messaging Hunter and Jeff like in the group chat or whatever, and we was just talking about it. And Jeff was like, "Man, I've been hunting so many hours in a stand." You know how he gets. You talk to him.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I was out there hunting, man, and blah 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 blah. And he's like, "They just kicking my butt. I'm gonna go home." Blah blah blah. Just Jeff being Jeff. And I've hunted with Jeff, so I know how he gets when times get hard, because I can get the same way. And dude, he killed his deer in Kansas same day. I
Oh, that's
remember
awesome.
walking up to my buck, I was taking some pictures, and I had just sent in the group chat that I had shot one. And when it drops off in there, there's no service hardly at all, nothing to load. And I just remember when I finally got service, like I could see where all of them was like, "Sam, what in the world did you shoot? What's going on?" Well, Jeff called me and he's like, "Man, I just smashed an 8-pointer in Kansas," or whatever, blah, blah. And we was talking like, "Dude, I got my hands on one right now." And it was so cool that we got to share that same moment at the same time. Cause like, what are the odds of me shooting a deer and then even him shooting a deer, a super close friend? It'd be like me going somewhere, shooting one, and then you call me, "Dude, I just shot one and he's laying here." You went from kind of down in the dumps, like I don't know, you question every move. You question, should I be here in this spot? Did I make the right decision? And then in a matter of less than a minute, I killed that deer right there. I shot that deer. I know it was less than 2 minutes of being in the stand. Like as soon as I got up in the stand, boom, him and the doe was in front of me. It can change so fast. And I just
In a
was talking to
heartbeat.
him, dude, so fast. And it was just so cool to get to share that experience with such a close friend. And, you know, killing every deer is, I feel like, sentimental and they have their place and they all mean something to you. But there was just something about that deer in that day because it was where I was and all the hardship I'd had. It was literally like killing. I think it would be comparable to someone killing their first public land buck or something. I mean, you've put so much work into it. You get close, or you lose a deer, or you get busted, or maybe you get a deer bumped off of you from other hunters, or you just like constantly like, man, you get discouraged,
Yeah.
but you keep pushing. And when it comes full circle, there's no way to describe the feeling. And man, when I got to put my hands on that deer, it was like just, man, it was unreal. It was so cool. So like that deer means a lot to me. And I remember just breaking down. I was like, couldn't believe it. And I was just, I was thinking, man, I wish my dad could have been here to see that because my dad dreamed of moments like that in the Midwest. I remember growing up. That's what he always said. Man, wouldn't it be nice to go one day and see something like that walk by or film you shooting it? Or and that's what he lived for. He lived for filming and just lived for the outdoors. I met a lot of great people who love to hunt, and Hunter Hogan is one of those, man, dude. That dude, him and Jeff, all you guys, but y'all love to hunt. But my dad, dude, that there was something about hunting that it just did something to him. It was his life, dude.
Yeah.
Outside of the gospel and the Lord, that was his life. I've never grew up. I'd never understood why my dad loved hunting like that. And now I do. Now that I've got older and experienced it, and it was just like that was the moment that every bow hunter or a hunter in general lives for, dude. And it was I would just you want to relive it all the time, but the memories do. Every time you think about it, I still get chills and jumped up and amped up about thinking about it now, telling it to you because you know it wasn't like nothing against anyone who goes an out of state and their first hunt or first year has success and kills a giant. Like, great, happy for you. But man, when you've had those troubles and those hardships, it's like someone winning their first tournament or anything. You've went through all those trials and you've been kind of kicked down and beat down, and you just keep on pushing, and it finally works out. And it just, man, it didn't matter how big the deer was. It was just the fact that it all worked together, and it was meaningful to you. And that's what hunting's about. Everyone nowadays wants to try and put a how big inches deer are to measure, how cool he is or anything, man. I don't get caught up in inches. I don't get caught up in none of that. If you kill a deer and it makes you happy, man, shoot him. That's what we're here for because
It,
that's the
it's a
sport. And man, I could talk all day about that thing. It was I don't know. There was something about that deer, and I don't know if it's just because I think it was just everything because of where I was and the experiences I'd had there. And like, man, all these other guys have killed bucks there, and I've seen these bucks, and that one year I got a chance to actually shoot at some, and I didn't successfully, I didn't succeed. I missed, and then I lost a deer, and so I'm like questioning myself. You start questioning your ability, and it gets to you a little bit. And I was like, man, I finally just took a second to like appreciate the property and appreciate the blessing that it was to be there, and like the fact that the Lord allowed me to even have a chance to go to somewhere like that and experience it. And you know the fact that it even worked out that day was just, it really kind of humbled me in a lot of ways. So I kind of felt like on the flip side of where I've missed that deer and had that humbling, and it taught me a lot about myself, and I realized so many different things. I think I got the flip side of it with that experience too. I got to be like, man, I was at the bottom of the bottom, and then, fast forward, I get to experience like, man, the point of like it finally paid off and it worked out and it come together, and it's just that's what every hunter or bow hunter or anybody lives for, is that experience right there, and you can't put any amount of money on that. So yeah, he's my oldest deer to date, and I could go this coming season and shoot, I don't know, I might shoot nothing, and I may kill a 170-inch deer, but that deer that I kill from here on out will not. They will just. There was something about that deer, and that's. I think there's always that one in your life that you know
Yeah.
something about it is special, and this deer is by far one of my most special deer. He probably this will always be my most favorite and special deer, Georgia deer to date. But that deer right there, there was something about it. I think it's like I said earlier, I think it's just where I was and just how everything had lined up. And when it finally come together, dude, I remember calling Hunter and talking to Jeff. Hunter was pumped for me, and um, I just remember he's like, "Man, you've had a lot of troubles there. You've had a lot of hardship," and he's like, "I'm just glad it worked out for you." And
Yeah,
to
man.
share that same success with others, that when others get to experience that with you too, that's what makes the hunting community so incredible, and archery community too. But like you've gained that same friendship with mutual friends that I have with you, and like to see their success, like you feel like you're a part of that. So, and I got to see Hunter and you and Jeff and all these guys kill these deer, and it was finally like I finally got to experience that there. So it was cool, man. It did a lot for me, in a
What
lot of
was that?
ways.
Sam, was that your first buck that you took uh without your dad there?
That was the first. No, I shot. So actually, this guy here, he's really cool. The
That
buck I
one.
was showing earlier. Yep, I shot. Real quick story: the property that my dad grew up on, his born and raised property. The first deer I ever shot in my life as a kid, very first deer I shot out of this set of stands, and I'd killed deer out of these stands as a uh, teenager and stuff, growing up with rifles, but I'd never shot a deer out of that stand with a bow. And this was dad passed in 2022. Yeah, 22 November. This deer right here I shot on December the 10th out of those stands chasing a doe. And that was the first deer I had shot without him, and the first deer I'd shot ever out of those stands with a bow. So it was just kind of crazy that year I shot a deer on that property out of those stands
Yeah.
and I had no history of this buck at all. He's real crazy, funky. I had pictures of him, but previous years never seen him, don't know what made him look like that. But so that was my first buck without my dad. Um, and I think the following year I shot a buck at home, but this one was special just because of the timing it lined up by after he passed and where
Absolutely.
it was. But that, like I said, now that was the first year I had shot out of state.
Yeah,
And
and
without him.
I can't help but to think back to, when we started off the podcast earlier, you were talking about like as a kid, and I grew up the same way. I mean, like these same DVDs and VHS, the Primos, Big Bucks, all that stuff, but talking about you and your dad watching that and the cookies and milk and all that and looking
Yeah,
over this Midwest land and these big bucks, and then how that was kind of his dream to hunt all that. And man, I can't tell you enough, but I believe it 100% that, he saw what you did there that day, and,
yeah,
he was there for it. I mean, that's what a really amazing thing to be able to go do that same thing that you guys are watching, and go
yeah,
get a big buck down in Illinois, and the timing of how it lined up. And I mean, man,
yeah,
I love that story, and you've referenced your dad a lot throughout the podcast. It's clear just kind of the hunter that he was and how much influence that put into you, and that's how I got started. And I can tell you right now, you can't see it from the camera angle, but I've got big bucks on the wall, and I've got big skull mounts down here, and I've got my biggest public buck at the taxidermist right now. And even with all that going on the wall, I've got a plaque and I've got a skull plate mounted of the first buck I
mhm,
ever took with my dad on public land when I was 6. And if it wasn't
yep,
for that, and if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have any of this on the wall. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now. And so hearing you reference your dad and talk about the same things that I experienced when I was growing up and doing all those same things, and the influence he had on you, man, it's super powerful stuff, and it's
Yeah.
awesome to hear that story and have that perspective in it.
Yeah, it's man, it's like that full circle moment with when we was talking about archery earlier, seeing the kids that used to be me. It's a similar thing, comparison thing that it's that full circle moment. And I'd give anything in the world for him to been able to been there and seen that, which, some people can say, oh, he saw it from above. Some people say he didn't, whatever, but like I know in that moment he was there and he experienced it in some way,
Yeah.
shape, or form. He did. And um, I wish you had got to meet him, before, years ago, and like Hunter and Jeff did, and they got to meet him and know who he was before. And dude, like he had so many great stories and experiences and, with hunting. And that's just what he lived for. It didn't matter how big the animal was. It was just, he loved the outdoors. He loved animals. He loved the hunting side of it. He loved the game, like figuring out, why does a deer do what it does? Why does it want to be here? Why does it want to do that? And, um, that instilled into me, which I'm gonna instill into my kids one day, when they get old enough to hunt. And you know, that's going back to what we said so much in this podcast, is just that's what the future of the industry is relaying those same experiences and memories and everything into, whether it's customers, because customers can have that same experience, dude, whether they've experienced that with a father figure or a family member, or they're getting into hunting on their own. It's that same general experience that I experienced with that deer in Illinois. First deer I ever shot with my dad, and the same first deer you have ever killed with your dad when you were 6. It's that same it's that same experience that any person getting into the sport experiences, and that's what like sets the tone for them, like moving forward with hunting or anything. And that's just what we live for, dude. It's just there's something about it. And so many people ask who's never shot a deer with a bow, it's like, man, what's it like shooting deer with a bow? You can't explain it.
No.
It's just there's something about it. And even killing your first deer, whether it's with a rifle or the bow, it doesn't matter. But it's just that experience that just, man, it does something for the soul. It really does. It's awesome.
Yeah. It does, man, and there is absolutely nothing I could say past that could encompass everything we just talked about better than that. And Sam, I gotta tell you, dude, the story you shared there, talking about ASA, talking about the shop, and pretty much being a business owner for as long as you've been old enough to work, it's your story's awesome, man, and it's something
Yeah,
that
I've
I
been
know I draw inspiration from. And I look up to a lot of the stuff that you do. I think you're on the right track on everything, and you're so involved, and your life is so involved in this industry and what you do. And the story about kind of, a lot of ways carrying on your dad's dreams and legacies and stuff like that, and sharing that and spreading it, dude, you're doing really awesome work, and I wish nothing but success for you, and I'm hoping we'll get to see you up on that podium throughout this season here, and with
yeah,
everything else you do, man. It's awesome.
that's the plan. I appreciate it. I've been very blessed, and I think that's like it's so easy to get consumed by just work, or you get caught up in, you get caught up in so many little different things. And I was just very thankful that I caught myself, because I got so caught up that day and in that moment. I was like aggravated, and I was like, man, you put so much emphasis on the success of you killing an animal, and it was just like sometimes the experience. I don't know how many times I've been there, or just hunting in general, whether you kill an animal or not, there's something to experience new, and you'll see something that you've never seen before hunting. Just watching wildlife and seeing the sun come up or set, like, dude, there's something about it. And that day, I was just thankful that I kind of got a hold of myself and realized that, man, like, I should just be thankful and just don't get so caught up in killing an animal. And it just worked out that day. But I was very blessed, but it was almost kind of like a blessing, and it was a blessing. It was almost like just it really kind of gave me a full circle godsend moment. I was like, man, like, it touched me differently. And you know, it kind of gives you that reassurance of like why you do it.
Yeah.
You can get so caught up I feel like you can get so discouraged sometimes that people's like, I don't even know why I do this anymore. And like, it's that moment that realizes why you're so passionate about it, why you're passionate about helping people, and why you're passionate about going to these tournaments, investing time and shooting and experiencing these relationships with these people. And like, that's why you do it. It's the passion for it. And, you know, everything about this is passion driven. And that all come from someone who is passionate about it before me. And that's what I think that instills into customers or friendships or people you experience, whether it's from a shop or hunting. And, because my dad loved it and was so passionate about it, it just instilled into me. And I grew that same passion. So you want to keep passing that on to people you experience. And I feel like the whole thing we've said about this podcast has been the experience, because everyone experiences things in different ways, and that passion doesn't have to come from whether it's a 3D tournament, or does it have to come from selling someone a bow. It's just that interaction that you meet with a customer, or when you experience that, success from hunting yourself, or the 9-year-old boy who shot his first deer with a bow in Illinois and killed that deer. Seeing that, like, that success is all passion driven. And man, like, someone being passionate enough to just keep pushing that into people, because that's the industry is so good and so many people have connections that you never know where that can take somebody. Whether it's you yourself experiencing that firsthand, killing an animal, or getting to go on a hunt, or somewhere you've never been, or that person getting to do that, go somewhere they've never been and kill their first buck out of state, who maybe's had some hardships, lost a dad that they hunted with, or a grandparent, or, relative of some sort, and they experience that same exact experience that I did. So I'm sitting here 12 hours from home in this tree stand, man, and it's just like around nobody. And that experience alone, like, all stem from years and years and years of my dad, or just someone who cared enough to take me and instill that passion into me. And so that come from, even from a shop perspective, like, growing up, the shop cared enough to get me going the right way. So the first year I ever shot with a bow, I was successful with it, because that shop owner cared enough to see me succeed, because he's passionate about it. And I think that goes a long way in just people, because then when they feel that, like, feel like someone cares enough to see them succeed, man, no amount of money you can put on that, you know?
No,
You can't
no,
put a price on
it's
it, so
that something like that, and whether somebody drew that passion or that, drive from their dad, or maybe it's someone that nobody in their family hunted and they drew it from someone that they found on YouTube or Instagram, and they're like, I want to do that. And
yeah.
that thing, that's the one thing that no shop, nobody can give you. That's it's put in you from personal experience and stuff like that. You can't
Mhm.
buy it. And then when that's shared with you from someone from a shop, or someone, that you're close to, or a friend or a relative or whatever, when that's shared with you and that grows, I mean, it's incredible where it can take you.
It's
It's where it
it's an
took you.
experience
Yeah.
that
It's
you want everyone to feel. It's just literally like the moment that I shot that deer, and when I found him, Jeff, a close friend of mine, just happened to kill one same day and called me. It's like he was passionate and shared that with me. And, I'm sure he talked to Hunter and you and all those guys. It was just so cool that someone else cared enough to share that same passion with me in that moment. Because there's a million people that you think, oh, I can call, but there's always a certain few that you just get to call to first. And, I'll remember Jeff calling me, and I was like, dude, this just so cool, because me and Jeff's hunted together and we've had some hardships hunting. And, that's a whole nother story for a different podcast or a different conversation one day. But man, like, it was just cool that I got to share that experience. And just, it was like so many different levels. It wasn't just killing a deer, it was so much more than that. And, that's one that I'll remember for a lifetime. And I may kill bigger deer one day and I may not. That's fine. But there's something about that deer. It just taught me so much. And it really, I feel like everyone has that once in a lifetime deer, whether it's a size or just there's something about it that speaks to you. It could be that non-typical deer you killed or your first
For
big buck
sure.
on public. There's always something about those animals that makes that experience so personable. And, again, it all goes back to the passion. The passion that we share in the industry and share to customers or share to people that's what all the effort that you put into the sport or the industry or your customers or even yourself to go to these places or hunt or spend the hours in the stand, because everyone always sees the picture on Instagram, but so many people don't realize maybe what happened behind the picture. You and Hunter and Jeff, all you guys, you grind day in, day out. You spend so many hours and minutes in a stand, and it's like, man, like, and all it takes is 45 seconds for it to happen.
Yeah.
And people don't see that, like so many people don't see that, but then there's something about those experiences that, until you tell someone about it or you share a story with them, like you get to feel that. Like I feel like every story you can tell someone, they get excited about it. So they share you. It's almost like you were there with them. You could tell me the story about any of your deer and you can see the passion that you have for that story or that experience. And it's almost like, man, you feel like you were there. So that's what's just so cool
It's
about this
contagious.
industry. Yeah, it is. So I've been very blessed. I'm very thankful that I get to try to keep pushing that forward and, experiencing that same success with people. And, I hope one day I get to experience those same things with my kids when they hunt, and see them grow up and share that same passion, because that success is measured in so many different ways, but that is success. You know, Killing animals are the bonus. They really are, but just the experiences, that's your success, in my opinion.
Couldn't agree more, man. Sam, buddy, we've done almost 2 hours here, and I could talk to you forever,
Yeah, it flies
but
by.
we're gonna have to save it for a different one, and we will do it again for sure. Man, I can't thank you enough for coming on. Like the stories you shared, the stuff you talked about, like I said, freaking awesome. It's everything that, we're about with archery and hunting and all that, and you're a really good steward of the sport and a really good example of it. So, thanks again for coming on, buddy, and thank everybody for listening. We'll catch you guys later.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Appreciate it.
I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode of the Non-Typical Project. If you're interested in our special guest, their information, as well as my information and our sponsors' links, are all going to be down in the description below. If you guys could, be sure to leave a positive review for the podcast, as it helps me out a ton. If you got any questions or anything that caught your eye during this podcast, you can leave a comment down below, and I'll be sure to get back to you as quick as possible. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys next week.